Hello, it's Mr. Drama here, and welcome to Total Drama Next Generation. Sorry for the long wait. I redid this video about 3 times, and I think I'm finally satisfied with the route and the direction that I took. For the next generation, I've decided that they deserve 3 seasons just like the first generation cast, and I have mixed together the Revenge of the Island and the Pahkitew cast in order to create 3 differently themed seasons that I think you'll all enjoy, and combine them in ways that creates better story arcs for all the characters involved. Fortunately, because of this, in order to keep the cast at 25, I did cut some characters that I don't think anyone will miss. I also changed some of the relationship dynamics going forward with this cast and made some slight character tweaks to some of the characters I feel like were ruined in their original shows. So, with that, let's find out who won the Total Drama World Tour season. So, Total Drama World Tour, Heather versus Alejandro. And you all voted for Heather. So the season 3 winner is Heather. Love that pick. That's who I would have picked as well. And so we have our cast. We've got Mike, Sean, Lightning, Brick. That's Sammy, Sky, Joe, Jasmine, Amy, B, Cameron, Max, Scott, Scarlett. Oh, I forget this character's name. Stacy, Zoe, Don, Sam, Leonard, Dave, Topher, Dawn, Anne Maria, Sugar, and Ella. And their teams are going to be separated by athletes, academics, and artists, right? And so the athletes, I'm going to have something in there that really shows Mike has been coasting off his Svetlana personality, and he kind of like feels like a fraud because of it. Academics, I'm just gonna make everyone. I think everyone here pretty much fits really well. I'm gonna make Stacy a debate champion. I think that fits her character. Scott, I'm gonna make a more of a strategist, really good at chess kind of guy. And Zoe really in tune, good with nature and wildlife and things of that nature. So I think academics works for that group. And I think all of these characters on the artist side are very clearly artists in their own right. Dave, I'm just gonna have him be like a band kid or make him like a band geek. I think that works for his character, and I think that's it's a good personality trait for him or character trait for him. So these are our team: the athletes, the academics, and the artists. So the triple A. I should have called the season Total Drama Triple A, but this is Total Drama Next Generation. And so each challenge is going to be based off of school or school subjects. So it's like kind of like Total Drama High School in a way. And so the first challenge is going to be like a history of war challenge. So it's a history theme challenge where they're going to war with each other. And the winning team is it's going to be the academics and the artists. And so I feel like there should be this joke where Sammy applied to be on the show and Amy just came and Chris couldn't tell the difference, so the athletes ended up with more people on their team. And then I think we should really get in there, Max and Scarlett getting in on sabotaging the other teams, but it not really working, and Scott having to do the sabotage for real. And so he sees the athletes as a threat and he sabotages their team. And I think the artist should win first, and underdog story, come up from behind, and the athletes will eventually lose that challenge. So they got something for Sky, Jasmine, and Lightning, Sean, and Brick. And so we have Sammy, Amy, Joe, and Mike on the chopping block. Joe because she was a bully and bossy the whole time. Sammy and Amy because they kept arguing about who was the better twin, blah blah blah. And Mike because he was kind of acting weird and being inconsistent with using Svetlana in order to win the challenge. And so the person they ultimately vote out is Sammy and Amy. Alright, next we have a challenge based on geometry, the blind leading the brilliant. This is where we're gonna have like kind of mazes theme thing where they have to go through mazes, and there's somebody leading each team while wearing a blindfold, right? We're gonna really see B use his contraptions here. We're gonna see Mike and Sky start to get a bit closer, right? And we're gonna see Mike and Sky start to get a bit closer in that way, right? And so I think in this challenge, we have our winners, which will be the athletes and the artists. And so I think the artists just fail and bomb this challenge because Stacy is just like lying and blabbering off and overestimating her abilities the whole time. And she's being very irritating to the whole team. And so we're going to see how this plays out. B and Don, Zoe and Scott, Max and Scarlett, with the bottom two being Stacy for basically misleading the team, and Cameron being the weakest link. And the person going home it's probably going to be a shock, will be Leonard. So what we have happen here is that Scott, in order to not lose a teammate, he goes and he tells this lie to Leonard that he got this letter about him being in some kind of wizarding council, and Leonard taking the bait and deciding to leave instead. So he takes Stacy's place in the Academics Don't Lose a Member. So this is really showing off Scott's strategic prowess. Alright, next we're gonna have a geology challenge where they're like treasure hunting. This is a pretty simple like treasure hunting challenge. And let's see who wins. The athletes and the artists, with the academics losing again. Right, so let's see how these votes play out. Cameron's safe, Scott's safe, B's safe, Don's safe, Max and Scarlett are safe. And so our bottom two would be Stacy and Zoe. We got Stacy in that bottom two because again she's like filling on the chopping block and she's lying a lot, compulsively lying to try to get on people's good side, and Zoe's constantly sticking up for her, and so Zoe's on the chopping block as well because Zoe keeps excusing that behavior and believing the lies, which ultimately causes the team to lose. But they eventually do get rid of Stacy instead of Zoe, and Zoe's starting to learn a valuable lesson about being a pushover. Alright, we're going to have the British Lid Challenge, which is going to be a bunch of Shakespeare themed, or like my grandma would say, Shakespeare themed challenges. Okay, let's see which team wins. Alright, we got the artists losing this challenge, I mean. And so here, I do think we should have like a Romeo and Juliet challenge. One where they're pairing off people. So I think initially Sugar is like wanting to be paired off with Dave. I think it'd be funny if Sugar has this big crush on Dave, and it's like me, it's like just like, oh, this is my little this is my little baby, and she's like always like manhandling him and emasculating him. I think it'd be really funny. But Dave pawns it on to Sam and Dakota, and Sam really starts to grow appreciation for Dakota in this, but they still, end up losing. I will say, due to some of Scott sabotaging that team after he sees how awful his team is performing, with Max and Scarlett being the Romeo and Juliet of their story or in their challenge. And I think we have some bonding happening between Sean and Jasmine, with them being the Romeo and Juliet over on their team. So we got votes for Sugar and Anne Maria, Hofer, Dave, and Ella. So our bottom two is going to be Dakota and Sam, who pretty much failed miserably as this Romeo and Juliet duo, with Dakota losing the challenge because she's so disgusted with the kissing scene she'd have to do with Sam. But Sam goes ahead and takes the loss for Dakota, and Dakota appreciates it and gives him a kiss on the cheek, and Dakota starts to learn to be a little less judgmental. And then we have Sam getting the boot. Next is a drama challenge, or like school play drama theme challenge, lights, camera, drama. And I know you'd think the artist would win this one, but again, I think Scott works behind the scenes to sabotage them. I think Zoe starts to catch Scott doing this and like chastises him, but I think their team is really looking at eliminating Zoe, because I feel like Zoe messes up the challenge and the little plays they have to put on for their team. I think Zoe has a hard time channeling those emotions in realistic ways, and so she loses for their team. So Scott is like telling Zoe, like, "Hey, I sabotaged this other team to save you, grateful." And so I think we should have a lot of arguing and bickering between Sugar and Ella, with Ella wanting to be the star of the musical because she can sing, and Sugar is like, no, I can sing better, and Sugar basically forcing everyone to accept her as the star. And so let's see how these votes play out. Dakota and Topher, and Maria, Dave, Sugar, and Ella at the bottom. Sugar basically for, pushing herself to be the star. And then Ella for not standing up for herself and keeping those talents hidden, and then finally revealing like, oh, she's an amazing singer, but didn't use that talent in the challenge, which eventually leads them to get rid of her because, like, wow, you could have won us the challenge. But I think it'd be funny because it's really ultimately Sugar's fault. And then we have our first Aftermath episode hosted by Amy and Sammy, which I think would be fun and hilarious, with those Aftermath contestants. Sabotage. They're really talking about the sabotage they endured and then rallying against Scott and Sugar. All right, next is the Health Dare Destroy Anything, Ruin Everyone, where they're making these. I think it'd be funny. They made these really bad anti-drug ads. I think Anne-Marie and Sugar are fighting for dominance and leadership on the team. Sugar's really making people choose between the two. I think that would be hilarious. So yeah, I think that would be funny. I think you see Topher kind of showing some of his strategic prowess, like him trying to start an alliance, like noticing, hey, the girls outnumber us. You can pull Sugar in as a number. You need to, be more kind to Sugar's advantage. We can use her as a number. So it really shows off Topher as this opportunity. Athletes in the academics, they are both safe. I think here we can really start to see more of Dawn reading people emotionally and helping Zoe through her emotional turmoil. And so Zoe and Dawn really become better friends here. I think you see Cameron and B become close friends here as well. I think you also start to see Sky try to notice Mike's multiple personalities and try to keep that secret tight for him. Topher, Safe, Dakota, Dave, and so Maria and Sugar are the bottom two because of their constant bickering the whole time, and they eventually choose to eliminate Maria because Topher wants Dave to use Sugar as a number. Next is an astronomy theme challenge. Houston, we have a problem. And I think we do some basic like Star Wars Space Cadet, kind of like the hiding the eggs and Total Drama Action, but kind of thing. Make it a lot more space themed, planet traversing theme. You kind of set up like these planetary backgrounds that they are doing the challenge in. I think that would be fun. And so you can see a lot of teamwork. You see a lot of destruction and chaos happening with this as well. I think you also see this plan from Scarlett and Max to go on ahead, and Scarlett lays out this really evil plan. Is that, hey, here's what we're gonna do. Instead of just letting the artists lose all these challenges, we're going to risk ourselves and lose these challenges as well. And we're going to finally be able to get that annoying Zoe out, who's starting to make friends with everyone, right, and suck up to everyone. And we're going to have this plan to sabotage her. So they're concocting this evil plan where they're going to get Zoe's confessionals, kind of like admitting how she feels about people, and use that against her. Okay, so we got stars for B, Dawn, for Cameron, Scott. And so Zoe's really on the chopping block because, they're using this confessionals to put Zoe under the bus. But Scott tells on them and gets Max eliminated or disqualified for his use of those private materials, right? And then so Scarlet really throws Max under the bus, but Max accidentally reveals that Scarlet was in on it too, and so Scarlet showcases her evil side, and they kick Scarlet out as well. So she's not really getting much time to be evil here. They kind of like soon they see it's like, oh, you're in on it too, let's go ahead and get rid of her as well. So Max and Scarlet are out. Next is the ROT scene theme challenge, Idiots in Training, where they're doing like military boot camp things. Think the chef challenge was not the one where they're cooking, but the challenge where chef was directing them to do these like military style things. And the winner here will be the academics and the artists. And so Scott and Topher or Scott and Sugar actually work together to sabotage the athletes because they both see their teams getting dwindled down in the numbers. And so they sabotage the athletes. Sugar goes a little too far and causes actual like danger for the athletes, which Brick has to save them from. And so Brick was ahead in the challenge and he decides to lose the challenge to go back and save his team. All right. And so we have stars for Sean, Jasmine, for Lightning, Mike, Sky, and we see the final two being Joe and Brick. Joe, because she's bossy as usual, and Brick because he did end up losing that challenge for them. And I think Joe really spins it as to where it's all Brick's fault because they don't really know who's been sabotaging the challenge for them. And Joe spins it like he did it to look like a hero. They get rid of Brick, and Brick says he has no regrets. He would do the same thing every single time. So Brick really gets to go out like a hero in the way he kind of does in the Revenge of the Island season. And then Joe is out. Brick is out. So next is art tagged and flagged, and so I think they're going to be doing graffiti tagging on different things throughout the area, right? So they're going to be doing like a graffiti tagging thing, one of those kind of gang war kind of style challenges. And we're going to see the artists and the athletes win with Scott sabotaging the team. Well, not sabotaging the team, but they just lose naturally. And so what I think Scott does here is he pulls Cameron with a secret he learns about him within the span of that day, like that Cameron's a bedwetter, and he says, "Hey, I'm gonna expose this secret if you don't vote with me," right? And so because Scott is threatening to expose that secret to keep him and Zoe safe, and Zoe doesn't know this, he convinces Cameron to vote out his own ally in the big threat, who is B, who's been like a big help in all these challenges. Okay. All right. And we have another aftermath episode where they're really talking about the evil of Scarlet and Max. They talk about how the real villains, and they debate how the real villains are really Scott and Sugar. Alright, episode 12 is Algebra Nerd Fight. I think they have just a basic mathletes style competition. I think would be funny. I would find that hilarious. So they do a mathletes competition. Right, and the athletes and the artists actually win this one. The academics lose. And I think we see this from Joe realizes that Scott had been sabotaging the teams, and so Joe now works with Sugar to sabotage Scott's team. In order to get back at them, we start to develop this rivalry between Joe and Scott. And so Cameron is safe, Zoe is safe, and they kind of see Scott as the reason they got sabotaged in the first place. But again, Scott is keeping Cameron secret in order for him to vote with them, and they end up axing Dawn. And so Zoe's not happy about this. She didn't see this coming. She's kind of shocked that Cameron would do this because her and Dawn were friends. And Dawn tells her that there's poison in the water and she needs to be careful. But Scott likes Zoe and he wants to keep them safe and in the game together. And so he uses Cameron to his advantage. And Cameron just comes out and says, hey, look, this is what's been happening. I'm not ashamed of it. And I'm going to admit this. So now Zoe's really siding with Cameron against Scott. Scott's in the doghouse. Next, they're going to have a music challenge. Cameron, Zoe, and Scott are begrudgingly working together, excuse me, right? And they're all going to have to start making this music together. Um, Joe is starting to develop their rivalry with Lightning over on their team as they like butt heads and what kind of things to make Sky and Mike. And then Sean and Jasmine start to grow closer and grow their relationships closer. So we have the athletes and the academics winning, with Sugar failing to failing to win in his challenge. He's like basically ruins the challenge for them when taking on that leadership. And so Topher gets a star, Dakota gets a star. And so what happens, what Sugar does is basically Sugar throws Dave under the bus, sacrifices Dave, says, hey, yeah, Dave, you're gonna have to go. She pretty much tells Dakota the boys alliance is starting, and basically tells Topher like, hey, in order for you to avoid getting eliminated, you're gonna have to vote Dave. And Topher's like, sure, I'm game. Because Topher, he's an opportunist. He really has no loyalty to anyone. Get Dave up out of there. So I just think it's funny that Sugar kind of forced Dave into this alliance with her, and then like backstab him the moment he wasn't convenient. I think like Sugar still like says "Love you, boo" on his way out. The next one is the language arts, where they're gonna do challenges based on the Romance languages, and they split into teams based on Spanish, French, and Italian. Right, where only one team can win, and each team that loses has to vote someone off. Right, and I think Sugar and Scott agree to throw the challenge to get out this power couple that becomes, more pronounced on this day, and they make their relationship more official, Sean and Jasmine. So they decide to throw the challenge to get Sean and Jasmine out, right? And does it work? And it does. They do get Sean and Jasmine out of there, which really shows Mike and Sky that if they're going to have a relationship, they have to keep it on the hush hush. And so the next one is calculus, calculated torture, where they mimic the torture of being in calculus class through torture themed challenges based on like really high numbers and things of that nature. Like you have to get 80 leeches tied to you or something like that. And we see Max and Scarlet return, and everyone's just vying to get out Scarlet, who's so evil and is basically sending torture, the most heinous torture, in everyone else's direction. But Scott is able to withstand the torture and wins the challenge. He's coming off as a hero, so it kind of redeems him in the eyes of a lot of the cast. And Zoe, he gets back in Zoe's good graces, taking everyone's torture in order to win the challenge and put a stop to Scarlet. And so, yeah, they're basically like, Scarlet and Max gotta go. And they do, in fact, vote out Scarlet. So she comes and she leaves just as easily as that. And now we have another Aftermath episode, Almost Is Never Enough, where they talk about the regrets of Dave, Jasmine, and Sean. And I think they can't just keep a muscle on Scarlet at this point. Next is Ep 17, Gym, a gym-related challenge where they do a bunch of sports called Sporty Hoops. I thought that would be funny. So they're doing a bunch of sports and gym-related challenges. I think here we start to see a lot more strategy play out, where Lightning is saying to Joe, like, hey, we need an alliance for the athletes team. They're going to be, considered big threats. Joe uses this information to say, hey, we should start a girls alliance, right? And Topher uses that information to say, hey, we should start a guys alliance, right? And so everyone's trying to start these alliances here. And the winner of the challenge is Joe. And I think a lot of the girls are put off by Joe and don't go ahead with her with the whole girls alliance concept. So she spends a lot of that time trying to convince them that the girls were the target and that Sky would be the next target if they let a guys alliance happen. And so Sky agrees with that, and we start to see the bottom two, the people they trust the least, which is Scott and Topher. But eventually, they eliminate Topher for bringing up the idea of a guy's alliance, and the girls are kind of like scared of that, and they rally against it. So the girls, alongside Mike, who votes with Sky, who feels like Sky would be a threat when Guys Alliance started, vote out Topher to crush the idea. So the next is a home ec challenge, passion for fashion, that Dakota ends up winning, which gives her a lot of confidence. But also, when they see how well the girls do in this challenge, the Lightning goes, yeah, we need a guys alliance, and pretty much forces all the guys into it, right? And so Scott is trying to look out for the interests of Zoe, and Mike's trying to look out for the interests of Sky. And so they're trying to make sure they steer the target towards someone that's not these two girls. Unbeknownst to each other, both these relationships are still secretive. And so they're looking to eliminate someone. Joe's trying to manage a girls' alliance, while Lightning's like, hey, we actually have the numbers. We can pull off guys' alliance. And so both groups are targeting the leaders, Lightning and Joe. But the guys' alliance does have the numbers. They stick together and they get rid of Joe. Right, culinary arts, culinary farts. That would be funny. And so we see Sugar's disgusting self win this challenge. It really puts Sky at the bottom. And Mike basically's like, hey, he comes out and says that he has this relationship with Sky in order to kind of protect us. Say, hey, can we please, you're my alliance, let's keep Sky around and vote Dakota instead. And that's how the guys agree, and they vote Dakota. But Scott's not really trying to hear that noise, especially after a chemistry challenge where Mike is really, after being outed, their relationship being outed, is actually can be seen trying to help Sky win the challenge and gets her to win, knowing that will be the guy's next target. They put the target squarely on Mike. And so instead of the guys' alliance voting out Sugar like Mike thinks, they do take their chance to break up that couple and get rid of Mike. And so they talk about in the aftermath how that attraction is really biting them in the butt in the long run. All right, next is going to be a challenge of psychological terror. And the last person to face their own form of psychological terror, the last person to be able to handle that, is going to automatically be eliminated. So it's not really a vote out. And so Cameron is the first to face his fears, which really is really a good, strong character arc for him to, be out of the bubble. Lightning is the next one to, then Zoe, and then Sugar, then Sky, and then Max is trying to face his fears with Scarlet. I think that would be hilarious if his psychological fear is Scarlet. And then Zoe helps Scott to get through his fear of being stuck on the countryside for the rest of his life, not getting into college and things like that. When he's got the good grades and being away from his family and becoming the city boy that looks down on the rest of his family like he's destined to do. And I think Zoe helps him get rid of that psychological fear, and it really shows their relationship and pretty much outs them as a couple as Zoe calms down Scott and gets him to stay in the game, with Max being in last place. And I think the next challenge we do will be physics or opposing forces, where they have to do like these physics tests or these famous physics experiments with somebody that is their complete opposite. So we're going to do Cameron and Lightning as one team, Zoe and Scott as one team, and Sugar and Sky as one team. I think Scott and Zoe start to get a better understanding of each other about the use of, being assertive versus being sorry, and being mean versus using kindness between Scott and Zoe. Cameron and Lightning gets to start to understand each other's strengths. But I think Sky's just really annoyed with Sugar the entire day. And it's just like, oh my God, you're such an awful human being. That Sky's just like, wow, I've worked hard at everything I do, and you just kind of think everything's going to be handed to you. And Sky's like super irritated with Sugar. And their team ends up losing. Cameron and Lightning team wins, and so it's really coming down to this couple, or Sky, who's the biggest threat because of her physicality. And I think they end up, instead of splitting up the couple, I think Scott is able to leverage Sugar to his side and Lightning to his side, and they get rid of the biggest challenge threat, which is Sky, or they're seeing as Sky. Next is Biological Buddy. It's kind of one of those animal duo episodes where they each have to care for this animal creature. We're gonna have Sugar winning it, as I think her animal's gonna be a pig, and I think it's really funny to see her interact with the pig and do well with it, right? And her being very excited about the challenge. I think kind of like what happened in Pahkitew, right? And so here they're definitely targeting Scott and Zoe, right? And they're pretty much looking at Zoe to get the boot, or looking at Lightning, but they're really saying, hey, Zoe here is the big threat. And so we're going to really see Scott take her place instead to keep Zoe in the game, where they share their first kiss very publicly. Next is going to be Geography Race to the finale, where they're going through the past challenges and collecting these country pieces to put together a big puzzle of the map. And I think this is going to be one of those things where last place loses, and you're going to have Sugar losing at first, but then sabotaging them every step of the way. So it's down to weakest link Cameron or Zoe. And I think Cameron's going to invent his way out of it and be able to leave Zoe behind. And Zoe being very, very sad about her performance, but having to accept that she lost by being too nice and staying back and helping Cameron instead of going ahead and winning. Now we have our final three, which is Sugar, Cameron, and Lightning. And I like this final three because you have somebody from the arts, from the academics, and from the athletes. So I wanted to have all three of those in the finale. And it's going to be a civics lesson where they have to really campaign, and the jury's going to vote someone out. So they're going to be able to vote someone out, right? So they're going to be able to vote someone out, and they decide to vote out Sugar, of course. It's been just a completely heinous this entire time. And so our final two will be Cameron and Lightning. Let's take a look back at how everything went, right? So you want to vote Cameron or Lightning to win. So vote in the comments. Who do you think should win Total Drama Next Generation? Cameron or Lightning? I'm Mr. Drama, and thanks for watching.